Hey there guys, welcome to my movie vlog, and this is my quick review of the brand new Pacific Rim sequel, Pacific Rim Uprising. To be honest with you, I saw the movie and I still have no idea what uprising means in the film. The first Pacific Rim film was one I quite enjoyed, of course, directed by the great Academy Award-winning director Guillermo del Toro. This time around, we've got Stephen S. DeKnight behind the camera, another guy that I really like. He was the showrunner of one of my all-time favorite shows, Spartacus. He was also the showrunner on Daredevil Season 1, so if you can't have Guillermo del Toro, I was pretty happy to hear he would be running things for the sequel. This time around, instead of Charlie Hunnam and Idris Elba, we've got John Boyega, who in many ways kind of takes over both of their roles. He's the hot young shotgun pilot, but at the same time, he's the Pentecost. He's the voice of authority all at the same time, so he kind of takes on the role of both of those characters. And look, John Boyega delivers. Look, John Boyega has got a really interesting set of tools in his acting tool belt. I mean, first of all, he's a very good actor. See Detroit if you want to know how good of an actor he can really be, because he's quite exceptional. But on top of that, he's got a rock-esque kind of charisma, like a little bit of Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson. I'm not saying he's as charismatic as Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson, but when you watch this film and others, he's certainly got that Dwayne Johnson kind of charisma about him to go along with his great acting ability, which makes for a pretty formidable package, and he actually brings all of that to his role in Pacific Rim, and he's actually quite good in it. Scott Eastwood also pops up in this movie, and you know what? Also, he's kind of not bad in this film. However, Pacific Rim Uprising isn't all new cast. There are a couple of returning players, including Rinko Kikuchi, who plays Mako. Of course, she was kind of like the love interest to Charlie Hunnam in the first one and the adopted daughter of Idris Elba. Also returning are the scientist duo of Charlie Day as Newton and Bern Gorman as Herman. Overall, this movie is actually not very good. What this movie does have going for it is when you get into like the second part of the third act, when the Jaegers really come out to fight and when the Kaiju come out to fight, all stuff that we've seen in the trailer. Basically, all the trailers are just the best parts of the third act of this movie. But when that scene actually starts to unfold and you start to get that combat, it's pretty exhilarating. The action is really quite good. What they do with the technology and with the monsters and all that kind of stuff was really neat. The fights were exhilarating and it was exciting. Unfortunately, it was such a small part of the movie and there wasn't enough else in the movie to carry it. Don't get me wrong, I didn't go into Pacific Rim Uprising just wanting to see 2 hours of monsters fighting robots. That's not it at all. But if you're going to have a big chunk of narrative in the film before you get to the action, make it good narrative, make it compelling narrative. It was so safe and so paint by the numbers and quite frankly so boring that by the time we got to the big action sets a little bit later in the film, I was almost already checked out. Which brings us to one of the new lead characters, which is Amara, played by actress Kaylee Spaney. Now, I hope I'm pronouncing her name right, but the film almost lost me right away because you have all the world's greatest scientists come together to build these Jaegers. Oh, but there's this 13 or 14 or 12-year-old girl who built her own Jaeger. By the way, they don't explain at all how she did it. She didn't have any of the equipment to do it, but she builds her own Jaeger from scratch. And she's also a great pilot all at the same time. And I was just kind of, oh, come on, really? And don't get me wrong, Kaylee actually did a pretty good job acting in it. It's just that the character that they wrote was kind of, well, just unbelievable. Another positive thing, though, I'll say for Pacific Rim Uprising is this. The villain and the twist, and the two are kind of connected to each other. I thought it was pretty imaginative, and it made sense, and it was consistent with everything from the first movie going into the second movie. So the villain and the twist actually are really well planned out, and it actually was one of the highlights of the film for me. So look, overall, I am not saying Pacific Rim is a terrible movie. It's not a terrible movie. It's just not all that good of a movie. Yes, there's a pretty good villain and twist. Yes, there's some great action once you get towards the end of the film. The big problem is that for the vast majority of the film, you've got straight narrative that isn't particularly good narrative or interesting narrative, and you find yourself checking out near the end of the film before you even get to the action, despite the fact that there are some pretty good performances along the way. So yeah, ultimately, I can't really recommend Pacific Rim Uprising. Again, not terrible, and you may get a kick out of it. I'm just saying I can't really enthusiastically endorse it. But the big question here is, guys, what did you think of Pacific Rim? Did you have a chance to see it yet? If so, jump down to the comment section below and leave me your thoughts. And listen, while you're here, why don't you take a second, subscribe to this YouTube channel, click the thumbs up on this video, and make sure you're following me on social media simply at John Campea. That'll do it for me for today, guys. Thanks a lot for joining me. My name's John Campea, and until my next video, bye-bye.